I'm going to share a video, and the reason I'm doing it this way is because this footage was never actually released. I don't actually know what happened. It was kind of a cluster. I believe this was the year that the CEO of the nonprofit that we were volunteering with, Chick Tech, there was just a lot of things happening. But this video, I sought out to find. I needed to save it because this 5-minute lightning talk was one of the most powerful things I've ever watched. I do not believe this amazing, beautiful woman who did the talk, Onyeka Jones, I don't believe that she's ever done this talk anywhere else. In fact, I did reach out to her on LinkedIn to say, hey, are you doing this again? Are you making this a TED Talk? Because it was so powerful, and just, I know it's a story that has been shared before, or at least a sentiment that's been shared before, but it is just so meaningful. So I'm recording myself in a reaction video, which is not my style, but we're going to do this together because I really want to make sure that this message continues to get perpetuated and more people get to see it. So we're going to watch It's the Small Things by Onyeka Jones from the ACT W, the Advancing the Careers of Technical Women conference in Portland, Oregon from 2018. All right, let's do this. 2019, my bad.
All right, so think about all the times your name is used, like when you're introduced, or when you order takeout, or when you call customer service, or in an email, in a meeting. For many of us, these encounters are mundane. We probably don't even remember them. My full name is Onyeka Chukwueze. It's an Igbo Nigerian name. It means who is greater than God. Like most Nigerian names, it's a blessing and a prayer that my parents gave me. So every time I use my name, I remember my heritage. Although my name is actually quite common in Nigeria, I have since learned it is unusual in America. So when I introduce myself to someone, I get all kinds of interesting variations. Some of them are amusing, like when I get called Onyeka instead of Onyeka. Sometimes though, and actually I've just turned it into a joke, I try to collect all the different variations of my name. Sometimes though, it's hard to make a joke of it because it has a clear racial charge to it. Like when I introduced myself to this guy at a party and he called me Onyeka, with a J and a Q and a W. So obviously he'd seen a black woman and called me what he assumed a black name sounds like. And I was just so stunned that he heard a J in my name that I just said yes and walked away. Once I applied for this job, I was so excited about the position. I was so excited about the company. And I was happy when the recruiter called me and left me a voicemail. But my happiness just quickly turned into sadness. And I actually just sobbed for like 5 minutes after I heard the voicemail. Because in the voicemail, she had called me Onyeka with a U, and a Q, and a W. So once again, I've been stereotyped. I've been called the name that she assumed a black woman should have. And I remember just thinking, if she couldn't spend the time to read the 6 letters in my name, what confidence did I have that she had read any part of my resume? And actually, as painful as that experience was, it wasn't as bad as when I attended this training and the instructor said, hey, we're going to be together for 3 days, and I want to make sure I use your name. It'll be quite rude if I point to you and say, you over there, I want to use your name. So please write your name on your name tag. So we all did. Now, it just so happened that all the white people in the room had Anglo-Saxon names, and all the people of color did not have Anglo-Saxon names. And not once, not one time over the 3 days did he call anyone in the room who was a person of color by name. Now, I'm sure this organization has a diversity statement, and maybe he just wanted to be polite and didn't want to butcher our names, But what was communicated is, here are the people who are the others who don't quite fit in. And here are the other people that I will give a personal experience to. I will use your names and give you this personal experience during this training. Now, my current company is not perfect by any means, actually, but I will never forget when I first started and I presented to a room full of executives, and every single VP in the room said my name perfectly. Like, I literally don't even know how it happened because I never taught them how to say my name. And then a few weeks later, one of them walked up to me and said, hey, I just want to make sure I'm saying your name correctly. And then he made me teach him how to say my name, even though he was already saying it correctly. And that experience, more than anything else, told me more about the position and diversity and inclusion. Because you see, we can have all these grand diversity statements, but if it's not reflected in our actions, from the great initiatives that we have all the way to the little experiences, diverse candidates will not feel included. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize I was going to cry again. I was the speaker manager for that year of the ACTW conference. And in previous years, okay, God, it's such a moving talk. And I really hope that the poor sound, like we had our videographers drop out that year. So we had people who were essentially just volunteers coming in to take over and just help us provide some kind of videography so that we would have record of it. But it didn't work out great. The sound wasn't awesome. You noticed at the beginning of the video, it was not super clear. I'm going to go through and make sure to like manually transcribe this because I really feel like what Onyeka shares is just so powerful because it's so small that caring about how you address someone matters. It matters to their experience. It matters to how they perceive themselves and their value and their worth. So I cried then and I'm crying now because I am, I don't know, big old softy. Not that I come off as like super hard and unemotional, but I don't typically cry on my channel. I'm sharing this with you today because it is the small things that matter the most. And I think I've watched this 20 something times over the last few years because it is just so amazing and so powerful and so small. We can all do better. And I hope this was inspiring for you as it was for me. And thanks for taking the time to watch this. I was going to say what matters most for me about this situation is that I was the speaker manager for that year. I volunteered with ACTW several years in a row, and that was the last year that I participated as a volunteer. I have to be honest, it's a ton of work. If you have never been part of a committee that is planning a conference, y'all, it is an entire separate job, and I was really burnt out that year. 2019 was a really tough year for me. I did my genetic testing that year to find out that my medication was working against my genes. So like that was dope, but everything else about that year was rough, including really pushing this conference across the finish line. And anyone who was on that conference committee that year can attest to that. But this one in particular I sought that year, that 2019 year, as the speaker manager, I sought to get people on stage who did not look like me, people to do workshops and breakout sessions who were not your typical the names that we would recognize in tech in Portland. So it's a very small conference. I think we had, not that small. I actually don't know how big conferences are. So I think it was like 600 or 700 people, which is phenomenal. That year, we only had 4% of speakers were male, self-identified as male. And we had, I think 92% identify as female or female and non-binary, like I use she, they pronouns.
and only 4% of people like straight up just identified as non-binary or preferred not to say. So like I worked really hard to get people with diverse backgrounds and diverse viewpoints on that stage and in front of people. And it's one of the moments that I am most proud of, because I did get on stage during the lightning talk, and I did actually, I'll have to link in the comments my Medium post where I'm like, what like it's hard is the Legally Blonde GIF that I would use, because it wasn't that hard to find people. I proactively reached out to people and said, hey, I know you've done something similar to this. Would you like to speak? I'd love for you to apply. It's not that hard to get speakers, a diverse speaker lineup on stage, people of color, Black women, brown people, black people, brown people, brown. Okay, now I'm struggling. But like it doesn't have to just be an all white, all male lineup. It's not that hard to make it happen. But that's just my little soapbox. I'm like, let me get my pitchfork. I hope you enjoyed this. This is truly one of my favorite things I have ever been a part of in my entire life. And again, thank you to Onyeka. I will share this on LinkedIn and tag you once again. And I hope you are getting all of the love and praise and proper name pronunciation. I hope all of you are experiencing that. So thanks for joining me for this additional content, and I'll see you on the flip side.